And welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. Today we are joined out from Calgary by Pauline. So, Pauline, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with us today. And maybe you can start by telling anyone listening, a little bit about you and a little bit about your journey to your role there at Good Lawyer.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, Jean-Paul. This is really exciting, especially when I've had other mentors and people that I look up to who have appeared here before. So I feel like I've made it. I've made it now that I'm here. Yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm a practicing lawyer, and currently I'm also head of lawyer experience at Good Lawyer. But my story starts when I got called to the bar, I suppose, maybe a little earlier than that, but we could talk about the other piece later. So I get called to the bar, and the as what I think a lot of students do, I jumped it right into the big firm art summaring and articling roles. So I started out at a big firm and lots of different kinds of experiences, lots of different people, but really I would say like the big firm experience was how I first started in law. And good people, interesting work, but ultimately, I think when I look at sort of the structure of how you practice in a firm and what the day to day looks like, I just realized that it wasn't for me. But I also, not gonna lie, was starting to feel like there's something wrong with me, that I think there's something wrong with this, and that I don't want to be in a big firm. And, it's the thing that everybody in law school seems to fight for and want to get to, and that is sort of the pinnacle of success. But it was something that I didn't really, it wasn't feeling right for me. So through a lot of there was a lot of angst and a lot of discussions and all kinds of things going on around my decision to leave, but I did ultimately decide to leave the big firm after my first few years, and then I did go in-house. So when I was getting into the beginning of my career, there really was only the two journeys. It was, you're in a big firm or you are an in-house lawyer. And so I thought, okay, well, since I don't like the firm, I think the next steps for me are going to be in-house. So I went to a company that was just a big multinational that was just starting to set up shop in Canada. And I was their first lawyer. So I got to help build out the legal function there and loved it. I love being in-house, working next to the business, just really felt very meaningful to me. And so I love the in-house work and I was really enjoying my time, but I was also very burnt out from my role previously. And so I got to a point where I came to the wrong conclusion, I think, that I didn't want to practice anymore and that I hated all of it, didn't want to be in the law. So then decided that I was going to try to figure out some sort of plan to exit the law. I ended up settling in. I was trying a whole bunch of different things. I was going to places I've never been before, trying out new things I've never tried, meeting people that were not sort of in my normal, I guess, sphere, and just doing a lot of different things, trying to figure out what my next steps were and how I could sort of piece together the bits of my background into maybe one cohesive thing that I wanted to do. So I come to the conclusion that I'm going to go start up my own business and I'm going to go start up a fitness studio. So I go out into the world. I've been taking lots of fitness classes. I'm now doing teacher training. I'm working at fitness studios in the evenings and on the weekend, just at the front desk. And, for a lot of people, this seems kind of wild to be doing this when you're also practicing law. But for me, it was very much about figuring out exactly what something looks like on the inside. Is it as cool as it looks like on the outside, or is it not? But if it's not, are those things I can live with and all of that? So I'm doing all this. Finally, I end up opening up a fitness studio. I am doing great. I'm loving my life. I learned so much about business and about practicing law through this experience. I'm loving my life. Everything's great. And then I'm about a month away from quitting my law job, dumping my license, and then I'm going to be in my studio forever, happily forever with flowers and rainbows everywhere, right? So everything's looking good. I'm about to pay myself properly. And then I end up getting a message from Good Lawyer on LinkedIn, and they're offering my fitness studio a free legal advice session. So, of course, I tell them, thank you very much, but no thanks, because I'm a lawyer, but also, like, who are you and what are you doing? I want to know, what is Good Lawyer. So they explain themselves. They convince me to try out Good Lawyer. I do. And then shortly after, I wrote our CEO a note that just said simply, "You've changed my life. My whole practice life now is forever before Good Lawyer," which was no thanks. And after Good Lawyer, which is just magical. I'm running my own practice, which to many, many people, I think sounds just wild. Why would you ever do that? We've all heard the horror stories about what happens when you open up your own practice. It's too much work and all of this stuff. Well, when I did it with Good Lawyer, that's probably lucky that's how I did it because ultimately to this day I feel weird telling people that I have my own practice because I don't really do anything that resembles me having my own practice. Good Lawyer manages all of my back office, so I don't have to worry about that and I just simply focus on doing the legal work. So I love that piece of it very much. I finally was able to get some flexibility and freedom and autonomy, but also having a little bit of support behind me because I can't do it all by myself. So I'm practicing now at this point, and then I also have a fitness studio, which was not what I had imagined and pictured. But I'm also loving my life. Like I get to practice with amazing clients. I have back office support. I have essentially client and practice management support coming from good lawyers so that I'm still just getting to focus on the work, which I love very much. And then on the side, I get to do something different that is not law and is of my own. And I'm enjoying all of this very much. But then, of course, Good Lawyer asked me to join them on their team as well, and I can't do it all. So eventually, I end up feeling like it's been about 10 years at this point for my studio, and it feels like I've kind of come to the right arc. The ending of this arc feels right. I've had a great time, learned a ton, but Good Lawyer is really speaking to me now. It's working for my own practice, but now supporting the team on talking to lawyers about what this type of practice looks like, I really, really am feeling like this is very meaningful work and it is very impactful for what I want to do in my life, which is I don't want lawyers to end up feeling how I felt and leaving the profession because of it. I think it's very sad that we regularly lose very, very talented, smart, giving, wonderful humans who are lawyers just simply because they don't want to do the things in the profession that they're required to do aside from the legal work. And there's all kinds of issues that they're struggling with and whatnot. And I just want to be able to help stop that. I want lawyers who want to practice and who want something very basic. They want some flexibility and some autonomy. They want control over the who, how, when, where, what of doing their work. That's what I want for all the lawyers because ultimately, when you've got a happy lawyer, you also have a happy client. And I think we could do with a lot more happy lawyers in our profession.
Perfect. And so let's get into then Good Lawyer and kind of your journey there. We can kind of come back to some of those other things. I think it's really interesting, say, well, how did you get recruited? Well, I was running a fitness studio. I feel like that answer never comes up, right?
Yeah.
It's one of one. So, you are the head of lawyer experience at Good Lawyer. So what is Good Lawyer and what kind of, experiences are Good Lawyer be able to offer for lawyers and how does that all come together?
Yeah, so I would say so good lawyers, we're in the business of providing flexible legal support for companies. And so sometimes that is an in-house legal department that needs capacity overflow support. They don't have enough people, but they don't have budget or headcount to bring someone on, but they need the support to help take some of the load off their team. And so they can hire somebody in to support the existing legal team. But it can also be for businesses that have never had an in-house lawyer, but they know that they need the support, they know that they need the help, and perhaps what they're doing with external counsel isn't working for them anymore, or somebody on the existing team has just been sort of soaking it up and trying to do the work, but is no longer able. But now we can offer a solution to that, and you may not have headcount or budget, but you can bring in a full-time lawyer, or sorry, you can bring in a lawyer who has the experience and who could be full-time, but right now they just want to be part-time for you, and it works for your needs as well, and you're still getting the legal support that you need. What I'm finding is that it works wonderfully for clients because they get the flexibility of hiring help and they're not just dumping everything on their existing team and expecting the existing team to soak it all up and do all of the extra work. They're hiring somebody in to have flexible legal support. But on the side, I would say it's really opened up the options for all lawyers of all stripes to be able to do the work that they want and have again flexibility over the who, what, when, where, why, how of the work. And I think it especially speaks to and makes accessible practice to lawyers who maybe don't fit in our sort of very traditional mold of law firm practice or in-house practice. And this could be for so many reasons. Some of it obviously is family, I think. So there's lots of lawyers who I talk to who have recently had a new child, whether it's their second, third, or first, or fourth, or whatever. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that raising a family is a lot of work and it's heavy work and it's 24/7 and you just can't predict what will happen. And so I find that lawyers who have the flexibility of being in their own practice are able to juggle this a lot more successfully, I think, from their perspective, and allows them to have a little bit more balance in their life. So I'm talking about children here, but this could also apply to anything that is going on. And that could also be, frankly, at this age and stage of life, I'm thinking about caregiving for an elderly parent. I don't have to do that now, but I've talked to a lot of lawyers who are in that stage and lawyers who are entering that stage, and I will be too at some point. And it is just incredibly helpful to know and wonderful to know that I can practice doing the work that I've trained for with clients that genuinely appreciate me and care about the work that we are doing together. And I get to help this company build. But also, it weaves into because I'm excited and happy about my practice. I also now can take energy home at the end of the day on the weekends to support this caregiving, whether it's for children or whether it's for an elderly parent, or I have to take them to appointments and I have flexibility to do so without feeling guilty that I'm not doing my work. I can do my work when I need to do my work for this company that I'm supporting as counsel, but also I can take my parents to an appointment and feel good doing that, that I can actually juggle both. So I think that's just one example. There's lots of different other examples. Obviously, I've talked to lots of lawyers who are neurodivergent and they just need different ways of working. And frankly, their different way of working is not worse or better. It's just different and it's what they need to do their work. And when we have clients that are, say, for example, fully remote and they are not fussed about whether their lawyer comes to the office or not, then if their lawyer is giving them the support that they need, who really cares if it was done in the office between these hours, right? So I think we're opening up accessibility in terms of practice paths for lots of different lawyers that accommodates the things that they need in their personal life. And in doing so, I think we do a better job of weaving together the personal and the professional so that people can be their whole self. They feel good about that and they're not hiding anything from anybody because of, it might be a struggle for work or work might not get it or they might get fired. So it feels a lot more accessible and allows all of us to bring our whole self into the profession, which I think is badly needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important conversation, right? As you mentioned, you really had two sort of paths, even from like your first day of law school, you walk in and all these firms are, sponsoring the rooms, and so
Yeah.
if you're going that path, you're like, look, I either go and work at, one of these big firms, I hustle for, I don't know, whatever the billable hours that are required to put myself aside, or you look at an in-house route, and again, either is going to be a lot of time. And for whatever reason, as you point out, it may not be doable, but you can't sort of carve that out. And so maybe you could tell me, how does sort of good lawyer fit into this space where, is there been a lot of uptake on both sides, right? I mean, I can imagine certainly there are lawyers who want kind of for the reasons that you've mentioned and many other reasons that sort of is appealing to them. But what about, in terms of as you pointed out, some of the clients, right? Is how much of a change does that make in the industry where now there's a third path and a path that may make sense for both lawyers and clients that, hey, I don't need to have somebody in-house where maybe we don't have enough work for them, or it's oversaturated for that, for them to soak all of that up, but we can have a different people. And how is that adoption there being done on both sides, as you find in your role at Good Lawyer, some success stories there?
Yeah. I think both sides, the clients and the lawyers, have really been needing something like this. But honestly, most people don't have a name for it or didn't know, couldn't think of it. And then Good Lawyer appears, and just about every lawyer I talk to, at least, is like, why didn't we have this sooner? And I think I said the same thing. But I think on both sides, like for the clients, it's I don't I don't know. I imagine there's people who are different than this, but I'm sure that many of the leaders on these teams, legal teams, when somebody has to take a leave of absence, or if you've got somebody, you've got your team, everybody's really, really busy, and then there's new things, new business unit, whatever division is getting added on, and now there's even more work. I'm sure that every legal leader out there is a little bit stressed about how they're going to manage this with the existing team. And especially when you don't have budget or headcount, then it's like really what that amounts to is we'll just put more work on the existing lawyers. But this is why I think that everybody's always known, I think, that at the big firms, the workload is quite high. It's a lot of hours, it's long days, a lot of work. I think historically, a lot of people have talked about, okay, well, if that's not what you want to do, or that, you want a little bit better work-life balance, you go in-house. Well, it would seem from what I hear and from what I'm seeing, in-house is not really that much better these days because there's just so much to be done. And frankly, just not enough bodies to be doing that work. And so I think the industry has been waiting for this for a very long time. It's the flexible legal support that really matters, but it's not even just that, oh, well, we can shovel a lawyer into your department and that will be the solution. No, you're putting a lawyer in place in your department who has experience in the practice areas, the industry, and the specific things that you need help from this lawyer. We will give you a lawyer that has that experience and they can just jump in and hit the ground running. It's not like you have to get them in, do a bunch of training and teaching and coaching. They already have the right experience that you need. And so I think a lot of in-house teams have been waiting for this and waiting and waiting. And now they have the solution that works out for them because they've got somebody who's experienced, got the right qualifications, who's done this before, has in-house experience, and then they get dropped into your legal team to do the work. On top of that, because Good Lawyer is supporting the back office for these lawyers, but also because of our model, our subscription based model that is fixed fee, lawyers are incentivized to be efficient and effective. And so in our world, it's not about the billable hour and it's not about having all of the fancy office that you can go to or the fancy monkey poop coffee that you get at these offices. It's about how do I do this work from wherever it is that works best for me in an efficient and effective manner. And so because of that, our lawyers then don't charge the same rates and don't need, frankly, the same rates as law firm lawyers do. Or if you were truly on your own in a solo practice, it would be completely different because you have to account for all of that other overhead and all of that other support that you need, especially in a solo practice. In our world, because the lawyers have that support, they understand that it's a fixed fee model, and so they're aiming for efficiency. Then it's just I find that it's just a more natural way of working for many, many lawyers, to be honest. There's not like, and then frankly, you don't have to, you're profitable because you're efficient, not because you sat your bum in a chair for X number of hours to do the work. So I think both, like, I even as I'm describing it, I'm like, I feel like you can see the benefits on both sides of it because for the lawyer, it's just you get to be efficient and you're rewarded with it, and you get to be effective and efficient using your experience, using the tools, any new technology and new tools that can help you be more efficient. We're driven to try it. Versus if I was in a billable hour model, I'd be like, no thanks. Why would I do that? Now I'm gonna have to find other ways, right? So on the lawyer side and the client side, it really is a win-win.
Yeah, so I mean, let's look. I mean, because you're obviously in charge of the lawyer experience there. So, what are some of the ways that, in terms of lawyers that are coming to you and or that you're looking to, maybe I don't know if you're going to the other fitness studios or
Yeah, yeah,
however you're
yeah.
looking for, but what are the ways in terms of drawing people in terms of navigating? And I know obviously you do all these fun and cool things, and technology is a piece to that, and certainly Brett and Chad and company, add to that. But what are some of the things there for lawyers thinking, hey, I want to get into something like this, or I'm tired of the traditional options, and I have desires to kind of find a way to make this work. So what's kind of like who are the people that you look for that thrive in this model, and what can you share from your own experiences, obviously that you started, that you can offer about essentially the experience that lawyers get.
Yeah. So I would say I think one of the key things to know is that you're the lawyers who do best with us are the ones that are prepared to be an entrepreneur. I hesitate because I'm like, you are. but don't be scared because we will help support all the back office. So in a way, it's entrepreneur light, I would say. So you are an entrepreneur, but it's entrepreneur light because Good Lawyer can handle all of your back office. A lot of lawyers that do really well in our system are also ones that have had in-house experience before. I would say the sweet spot, honestly, is probably between like that 7, 8 year mark and up to about 25-ish years of experience. These are the lawyers that do the best in our model and in the in-house departments that we support. I think generally because they're sort of they have enough in-house experience that they sort of get a sense of the usual day-to-day flow and what that can look like. Obviously different with every business, but they can learn that when they get in. So they've seen some things, they maybe have even seen a lot of things that will help them jump into any company and just be like, okay, I don't know this exact situation, but I can apply what I've done before, tools, resources, experience, and help walk you through all of this and support. So I think in-house experience is really important. The other thing to know too is that lawyers in our system who do best know what they want. They know what they want. They know what they don't want, which I think for many people, they like to carve out the don't want as something that's less important, but I don't think so. I think it is just as important to know what you don't want as it is to know what you do want. So lawyers that do well know what they want. They know that this is their experience and practice area and in industries, and this is what they're interested in. It is actually aligns the two. They're interested. And then what happens is when you talk to Good Lawyer, are what we want to know. We will have seen your resume, we will have seen your LinkedIn, but what we want to know now is the human part. And this is what I always tell the lawyers I talk to. I want to know the human part of your story because that's going to also tell me what's next. What is the next part of your story? What is the next human thing that you're looking for? And that human thing that I'm talking about is really just flexibility. Are you looking for stability? Is it variety? Is it growth? Is it what is the thing that you're looking for? And we will do our best to support you in finding that thing. And if you don't like it, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, we will help you switch and we will move you into a different spot. If that's not what you like, you can finish out your mandate and then we'll find you something else. Because ultimately, we are following you along in your journey of do I want to work more? Do I want to work less? Do I like these types of clients? Do I like those types of clients? What is the thing that makes me happiest when I'm working? Because again, happy lawyer in our minds equals happy client.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes with the phrase that we were talking about, fractional general counsel or fractional lawyers, right? Because there's a lot of that flexibility that is difficult, in either of those traditional models, right? To say, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna scale back. I'm gonna do like, I don't know, 1,000 hours this year, if that's okay. I mean, I can only imagine where that conversation goes. Not a world that I've really been in, but so how do you sort of see that in terms of, and maybe you can, for my students maybe listening who are like, I have no idea what fractional lawyer or fractional general counsel even means, but maybe start with that and kind of how how flexible really, when people say we know we're flexible here and the opportunities are, but where is that opportunity there for lawyers who want to go this route in terms of how much they get to choose essentially their adventure?
Yeah. So I would say like so to start, I would say fractional is really just part-time, like you and I were talking about before. It's just part-time. But I think unfortunately that also part-time specifically has a bit of a bad connotation for me, maybe for more in our profession, because typically what that means is yes, we'll schedule you in for part-time work, but really what it amounts to is you're working somewhere between part-time and full-time hours, but we're only going to pay you part-time. So I think because of that, I think fractional is a better term to go with. And what I would say it's mainly because it's not tainted by the by that view of it. And in our world, fractional just simply means part-time. You're working part-time for somebody, but you're getting paid in a way that reflects that you are working part-time. And so you get part-time pay, but you are also only working part-time. And this comes up in our model, especially when we're talking about fixed fee subscription services, because it is, you're getting paid this fixed fee. Your client knows what they're paying every month. You know what you're getting paid every month for X amount of commitment to the client. And then as soon as that changes, then we're billing on the overages if there are overages, and then we're supporting and talking to lawyers and or clients if there's underages. But bottom line is it's not it's part-time work for proper part-time pay. That being said, when we do the math, because you're not an employee, when we actually do the math of what lawyers are making in 1 year of fractional work, I would say it's very, very lucrative. We can see that it makes a whole lot of sense for lawyers to practice this way, but it does take time to get used to because you are running your own practice and you're not in a traditional employment environment, which for some lawyers feels very insecure and they don't like that either. And that's totally fine. Um, but in the end, it just is, it can be quite lucrative actually for many lawyers who are working fractionally. And when I say fractionally, I mean they're only working part time. They can make easily what people are making full time, just working part time. Or if you're working fractionally, but you're stacking two, three, four different mandates and you are at full time hours, it's the same idea. Even with stacking mandates, it can be very, very lucrative to be working fractionally this way instead of all in on one path or the other.
Yeah, so I mean, on that topic, it goes kind of into, work-life balance, and maybe we can, start with yourself even, or any of the lawyers there. But how do you find a way, at this stage in your career? I mean, having done all the various things you've done comparatively, I mean, whatever your priorities may be, and certainly we can start with that too,
Yeah.
of maintaining that work-life balance at this stage in a legal career, and even in generally, right? I mean, which is why I would imagine a lot of this is captivating for lawyers is that look, I've done the hustle, I've done the grind, I went through this path for the first 7 years, and it's not it for me anymore. But what can be done, right, in terms of finding that healthy balance, and what are the things that no, you can start with yourself, right, is that you look
Yeah.
for in your role, and what is it that others seem to be asking about when they want to come and work alongside good lawyer.
Yeah. So yeah, based on my experience, I would say what mean is meaningful to me, like the priorities are first, one of the first things is when I was back at the firm, I remember thinking, okay, well, at some point I'm probably going to start a family. I just want to know what this plays out, like play it out. What does it look like? And I talked to a number of lawyers, and lots of it was like, yeah, it's perfectly possible to do this and to have children and have a family, and that's fine. I but then also what I was seeing was like there's lots of everybody has nannies, lots of nannies to help support the family. And I get that. Certainly there's days I would like to send my children away with a nanny for a nice long period of time so I can get a break. But that was not what I wanted for my life. And so it's just not what I chose. I don't judge it at all, but it's not what I chose. I wanted to have a family and I wanted to be the one who goes to pick up. However annoying it is, I want to be the one to go to pick up or drop off because there's great little conversations that happen with them in the car. It's not just about those special one-time moments where we go to Disneyland and, I'm being a parent. It's not like that. Like I get in the car, they tell me about something that's happening at school, and suddenly we're having a big conversation about something that I never imagined we'd be talking about today. That's the moments that I wanted to be there for. And so that was my priority. I'm looking around, I'm seeing that it doesn't happen in a big firm without the help of nannies, which is not what I wanted to do. So then I'm looking around in house. Is that possible? Can I do it there? Okay, it's looking like it could be doable there. So maybe I'll try that out. So that would be one of my priorities. Also, another one of my priorities was very much, especially after I left the firm, was I will not go anywhere or do work for anybody anymore unless I am being me and I get to be fully me, which means I show up like this often. I don't, and in a traditional environment, that's probably not super acceptable. It might be in some places, but not in others. I can't be at a place like that. I just need to be who I am, how I am, because I'm so busy with all the things that I don't have time to play pretend. I don't have the mental energy. I don't have any of that. So for me, that was also what was really that really mattered for me. And I feel like in our process with Good Lawyer, part of it is, yeah, sure, you've got this industry experience and great, you've got this other practice area experience with all these amazing logos. You're great. We could totally sell you to anybody, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to sell you to somebody who aligns perfectly with your practice, your industry experience, and also your personality and the culture fit, which that matters a lot because I think that when I know that for me, when I get to be who I am and present myself the way I present myself and do the work how I want to, where I want to, when I want to, I show up with more energy when it's time to go home and parent and teach the kids things and do all the stuff. That's what I need. I need something in my day that energizes me and yes, takes energy away, but also doesn't drain me to the point of when I come home, I can no longer be a parent properly because I'm just too tired. That for me is what is important. And I hear this from a lot of parents. I hear this from so many parents about how they just are finding that their day is so draining to them and they can't have that because they have somebody at home that needs all of their energy. And maybe we don't have all of it to give, but more than what I'm currently giving would be great. So I hear this a lot from lawyers. I also hear a lot about the authenticity piece as well. I think so many of us don't feel like we can be ourselves in the traditional environment. We were all raised in such a manner, I think, in the profession that, wearing suits, black and gray, and maybe navy is the only acceptable thing to be wearing at any given moment of the day. And that's how you practice and all of these things. And I just think that our profession is so diverse. We have so much diversity of experiences and perspectives and just ways of being that are so important for our profession connecting to the public that we're supposed to be serving. But yet, somewhere along the way, as you and I talked about earlier, that stuff goes away. We learn to cover it all up and hide and become, that exact square peg that's supposed to fit in the square hole. But then, oh no, wait, I'm a round peg and I don't fit really well. So what do I need to do to make myself fit? And I think that is such a shame. I think it's a bad thing for a profession. I don't think it's good. And I think that what we are doing allows people, it's more than just the working piece. It's very much about how can I be me? And if that means I have other things going on in my life and I can only practice part-time, that's a great thing, isn't it? Because that lawyer otherwise would have gone elsewhere. I've talked to so many lawyers who have so many interests and hobbies that they were very proud of. Then they got into practice and it all went away because they didn't have time, but also they were sometimes in some cases told, "Oh, you don't need to do that anymore. We just need you to do these following things and then we're going to make sure we tell everybody that, this is what you do." I just I think it's very sad for our profession, and I think it's sad for the public that we serve. How do we do that when we're all the same person and the same human with all the same experiences? We need that diversity to be successful in what we do.
Now you brought up diversity there, and I mean, obviously, there's many aspects of it, but I mean, often I find the 50-50 maybe male female or however people identify, and even just in terms of the breakdowns demographically, right? I mean, age, people of
Hmm.
color, tends not to look the same, when you compare your class at law school, which is already not
Yes.
the most diverse comparatively, but then the further you go 7 years 8 years into the profession, you look around at the firms. Now how does that kind of, when you look at from marginalized groups, right, that want to be part of this, how is that kind of reflective in the challenge that you have at Good Lawyer, to look at, well, no, any of those reasons that we've mentioned, any of these groups there, of how do you make that work, or how reflective is the diversity of the lawyers that you have, in terms of, vis-a-vis the firms and the general counsels,
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, we're very aware of this issue, so we do very much try to. It's in the way, like, I mean, I would say it's very much about opting people in, and we do that as whenever at all possible in terms of opting people into the network. Okay, you might not have had traditional in-house experience, or maybe you did have traditional in-house experience, but you're an NCA lawyer, so you're foreign trained lawyer, you got accredited elsewhere, then you maybe worked in-house for this big I don't know, let's call it this big e-commerce provider that we in North America are not necessarily familiar with, but it is, they're a big global company everywhere else, and, very, very big company. These are the things that I feel like we try to pull out of a lawyer's experience and share with potential prospects by saying, hey, here's this lawyer. They've done these exact 3 or 4 things that you're looking for help for. And they did it in an in-house role at this company. Oh, you don't know what that company is. Let me explain it. So this company is equivalent to whatever. Let's just say this is equivalent to the Amazon of North America, but over in Asia or something like that. So we do try to like parse out some of these pieces so that when we are talking to a prospect or client, trying to sell them a lawyer who maybe doesn't have North American in-house experience, we will dig a little bit deeper and make sure that we can explain this to a client in a way so that they can see, oh, it might be great if I hired this lawyer because they have experience with my business and they know exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly sometimes championing for those people makes it easier rather than trying to again, if you had set up your own practice, even right, that to go and
Totally.
get that client, or even again, if you have any of those restrictions, as we were talking about, as at a firm, then you're not going to be the one that they're going to push to some of these clients, knowing that you have you want to even work at a slower pace, right? So
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah.
So sorry, I was just gonna say, so like it just feels like we're doing what we can to champion. I also see like we do get a lot of lawyers coming to us who are foreign trained lawyers, and this is one area that I think I've always been very passionate about because I've had the experience of working with foreign trained lawyers when they were not lawyers and I was the lawyer. And all I could think was like, oh my gosh, you have so much experience. You should be teaching me. You should be my boss, not the other way around. This doesn't make sense to me. And so like I guess when I see that in our lawyers, we get a lot of lawyers coming to us and I would NCA lawyers or foreign trained lawyers. It just says to me that there's a problem somewhere in our process of accrediting these lawyers. From what I understand, it's a articling is a big struggle point because these lawyers are not going through the traditional process where we do the on-campus interviews and you're jumping through all those hoops in a very sort of structured way. Because these lawyers aren't part of that process, they miss out on a lot of the opportunities. And yeah, I guess I just think that there's a problem. And so even if we at Good Lawyer are not able to solve that problem, what I think is really good is for us to be able to shed light on it and at least at the very minimum build some awareness that this is an issue that we see and that lawyers struggle with. And maybe just by bringing awareness to it, then maybe we can bring the right brains together in the right room at some point to figure this out or draw attention to how do we figure this out? How do we fix this problem? We have needs for lawyers and we don't have enough. And yet we have all these lawyers who would like to work in Canada in their profession, but we're holding them at bay.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of cyclical, right? I mean it goes really back to, if I could go back to when I know we were talking about Chad before, in 2006, right? I mean you don't realize that literally those first few months, puts you on a certain path, right? Because you go through the
Totally.
OCIs, you go through that, you do your summer, you article, you come back, and then
Yeah,
maybe jumping around, but if you're not part of that pathway as an a foreign trainer, internationally trained lawyer, then how do you get into that pathway, right? And then if you're not there, regardless of whatever firm you may end up in, then you don't even have that opportunity should you not be progressing at your own firm that you can jump to another firm, right? And it kind of
totally.
creates this sort of perpetual barrier
Yes,
for a lot of internationally trained lawyers or anyone really, but
totally.
predominantly those groups that or in any equity seeking group where having options like what we've been discussing that sort of balances the playing field a little bit to say,
Yeah.
look, well, here's somebody who can provide this support for your team or your business, and it works a little bit better. But again,
Mhm.
steps have to happen over time. So, I mean, how again, to see that and to raise awareness like that you're finding in terms of your breakdown of the people that work with you, that how does it all play out with with your clients and providing them the support they need?
Yeah, I mean, I think the clients are, at the end of the day, the clients are, they're not so fussed about whether this is an internationally trained lawyer or not. What they want ultimately is going to be, here's the things that I need help with, A, B, C, D, and I need a lawyer who can do this for me. And then hopefully there's some good personality and culture fit stuff going on there as well. And so I find like it's more about when we're pitching the lawyer, it's just simply doing our homework to be like, hey, these lawyers have worked at these following places that are just like you guys. You need these things. These lawyers have done all these things at these places before, and it matches what you're looking for. There's no difference in our minds, and really for the client between an internationally trained lawyer or not. They just want a lawyer who matches those criteria and can jump in and take a load off of their plate, right? And so for them, it doesn't really matter. I think I think we as Good Lawyer are learning more and more all the time and trying to build out more, I would say maybe you call them tools, I suppose, on how to pivot some of the ways we would normally introduce a lawyer who's not an international trained lawyer versus somebody who is, and then pivot how we address a concern or thoughts about has this lawyer done this work before, whatever. I think it's just more about us learning how to do that and support these lawyers. But at the same time, also I explain to the lawyers regularly is that we still face the same barriers. We're happy to champion you because we think you're wonderful and can do the work, but we will ultimately still face the same barriers. And that's very real also for age. We run into ageism. That is a real thing. Lawyers that are senior can sometimes struggle on proposals because the clients are worried about this lawyer being too senior. They're too experienced. They're too set in their ways. They're, maybe more traditional and they don't use technology or something like that. But I would say that's less likely in our roster simply because these are, I would say, more forward thinking lawyers who are open to doing things differently. Um, but also I'm like, what? Like this is wild that like I feel like I just found this other bad outcome of the billable hour model. It makes people think that we don't want to work with technology. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe under the billable hour model, it doesn't actually make sense. But under our model, it actually makes a lot of sense for lawyers to do this. And so we're not getting lawyers who are not using technology. That's just not, those are not the lawyers in our roster. And it drives lawyers, I think, who do join us or want to be in our roster to be like, wait a minute, I've been doing my work this way for so many years. Maybe it's time I switched it up. This is way faster and way better, way more efficient, gets me more things that I need. So we're actually, I think, driving change in another through, technology and innovation. But for lawyers who have never really thought about it and did things the way they've always done it, and now are like, oh, wait, I have the freedom and flexibility to choose to do this differently. It's better for me and it's better for the client. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, and so again, different ways of looking at things, and certainly, I mean, I wanted to sort of circle back to obviously, your unique pathway and running, a fitness studio there, and especially because I have students, who come from all walks of life and different paths, so they always are like, well, I don't have law firm experience, so I'm at a disadvantage right away from some of the students in the class, and what can you share, I guess, from that experience that you find has translated into your role, both at Good Lawyer and recognizing obviously the uniqueness of that, and I mean, really directly, coincidentally, that's the path that directly came to where you are, right? I mean, because if they
Yeah.
reach out for providing support, who knows where you would be.
Yeah.
So what have you learned from that experience, and why is it important for legal professionals to have, whatever it is, like a hobby we were talking about, or
Yeah.
just style, that kind of doesn't, you got to go into that square peg, so to speak. But where's
Yeah.
the value in that, and what can you share for people listening about how that's helped you?
Like I wish I could go back and just tell myself, just be you, do what you know you like. And also like feel free to go experiment and see what are the new things that you might also like. But here's the new things. Also, I don't like this. I don't want to do this ever again because I hate it and it drains my energy. I think my advice is like students, I wish I could go back and know that it was equally important to know what I liked, but what I didn't like, and then to stick to it. There is this like the train of the OCIs and like jump in, and then this is the first few steps, and then now you're off on this path that you didn't expect to be on. But then also for me, I didn't even think about it. I just jumped on the path because that's what people said I should do, and so I did. What I would say is know what you want, know what you want, know what you don't want. And there's nothing wrong with also then knowing there's a column that is, I don't know, maybe I like it, maybe I don't, but I got to try it first. There's nothing wrong with that either. But I think so many of us just go with the traditional wisdom of like, just do it the way I told you to, and you'll learn all kinds of things. Yeah, but don't maybe just fully jump into it. Like you still have to carry some of the things with you of I know me, I like these things, I don't like these things. These things are like, as Chad loves to put it, these things are like pushing boulders uphill. Who wants to do that all day? Like maybe you might like it for a little bit of your job, but not the whole thing. So then maybe you need to pivot and look at something else that doesn't require pushing boulders uphill all day. Who doesn't like to push a boulder downhill? That's just much easier, isn't it? And so like it's so important to know who you are, what you like and what you don't like, and then not let law school and early days of practice change that for you. Yes, it's hard work. Yes, you might have to put in more hours than another lawyer would because you're just learning. But fundamentally, I think we all understand and know when there's something that just doesn't quite align. It's not the, oh, I'm just working hard because I'm learning. It's the, I'm working hard in lots of hours because this is the way it's expected to be here and will be forever. One of those is not going to suit you forever. One of those things, you can test it and try it. No big deal. Decide if you like it or not. So that's one thing. The other thing I think we get, I don't know why, and I think it's probably from maybe from our parents' generation of like stick to one thing and don't jump around. That's always been something in my head that I am a failure. That's like that I am a failure about because I jump around from thing to thing to thing. But then as I got into this role with Good Lawyer, I realized the only way I got here was because I jumped around from thing to thing to thing. And then somehow now magically I have this role that combines everything that I've done, and all of it is useful and all of it is encouraged. um, I never thought I would be in a position like this ever. And so I think I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're not enough because they've jumped around and they can't decide what they want and they're always interested in something new. Nor do I want the person who's always known what they wanted to feel bad either. If you've always known what you wanted, go for it. But if you don't, there's nothing wrong with that either. That's actually like that could actually come around to a full circle moment when all of the things come together. And honestly, if I don't know, I'm not the universe, so I don't know, but I feel like that's kind of how it plays out. When you're kind to yourself and you let yourself test out all of the things, eventually there's coming something along where you can pull out a bunch of the stuff that you love and put it together into one package.
Perfect. So, Pauline, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us and sharing this afternoon about yourself, your role there at Good Lawyer, and kind of your very unique journey, and really the unique opportunities that are available, in terms of lawyers looking for, a little bit of work-life balance, or again, whatever the circumstances may be, that, you don't have to fit yourself into essentially the traditional roles, where, you may burn out or just be dissatisfied with it. And obviously for some people that's it for them,
Yep.
but but there's other options, right? And being more innovative and combining technology and an environment where you can succeed, and having people that champion you in the corner certainly helps. So I wanted to end, if you have any final words of wisdom for anyone listening, whether they're newly licensed. I think there's, we're getting into June, so there should be some ceremonies coming up, at least in Ontario. I'm not sure about in Alberta when the timings are there, but any final words of wisdom? And thanks so much, and congratulations. I guess we didn't talk about it, but congratulations on your nomination. I think the voting closed over the weekend there for the top
Yeah.
25 most influential lawyers. So I think we're both up for it, which is great, and hopefully all the best to you in that as well.
Well, thank you. Congratulations also as well, and all the best there to you also. But honestly, I think the greatest reward is seeing the things that come from, the things that you and I are both doing. And for me, I see it all the time when I'm talking to the lawyers and, they get involved with Good Lawyer. But I would say, ah, that's a tough one. Words of wisdom for, you know what? I'll say this. I rightfully so. I think we all get a talk at some point in law school. This is going to be harder and different than anything you've ever done. It's a lot of work. It's really hard. You got to stay focused and it's going to be tough. Yes, that is all correct. But I also think to myself, when I see my kids, especially, they did not know how to tie their shoes at one point, and it was an incredible undertaking for them to try and get their shoes tied. It is no longer. It is no longer. And that is no different to me than anything and everything that we, even as adults, take on in our life. And so if you've just gone through law school and you're trying to figure out what's next, it's wide open green grass for you to figure out what next. It's just about how you piece it together and how much you want it. Really, that's the difference. How much do you want it? And if you really, really want it, you're going to do go the extra mile that others maybe did not go the extra mile for because they didn't really want it. So I would say, just remember, if you're having a moment of lack of faith, you learn to tie your shoes when it seemed like it was impossible, and it took maybe a long time, maybe it didn't take a very long time. But bottom line is, you didn't know how to do that, and you figured it out. This is no different than your career right now. You will figure it out, and you will get there. But I think the only thing to remember, so that you're not like Pauline at least, mindfully, do it mindfully, do it thoughtfully and intentionally and mindfully, and be curious about all the things that you could possibly do. don't limit yourself just because you think we have only the two paths and that people tell you we only have the two paths. There's a million paths. You'll figure it out and you can do this, just like you learned to tie your shoelaces.
Perfect. So thanks again, Pauline, and thanks for everyone for listening. All the best. Take care.